Here we can see an instance of the Modular Junction MIDI effects on our track with an instance of Ableton's wavetable right after it in the device view. The wavetable at the moment has a basic blank preset. So let's choose a slightly more exciting wavetable. Obviously we can modulate and manipulate many things inside Ableton's wavetable. There's a really great modulation matrix down here. We could probably go a little bit further by doing some more interesting things with the Mod Junction. So let's switch on our first mod slot, and we're simply going to map the oscillator 1 position. So now we've got control over that position. This is actually working by the live object model. Let's choose a modulation source. So let's go to maybe an 8-stage envelope. And we can click the little button here to open our floating editor that's going to show us all our parameters. Let's switch on the 8-stage envelope. So it's now active. And if we were to trigger this now, we can see our MIDI notes are actually going to be triggering the modulation. So let's now send over some of the modulation source via this little slider to our device. And we can see when we play a note on our controller, we are triggering the 8-stage envelope and modulating the wavetable position. So we can also send over a little bit more here. We've got a way to develop the width of the source. So you can actually customize it and get right in to some heavy modulation values. Also, quite a lot of the modulation sources have got some interesting novel things. In this example, we're going to run the envelope over clock as opposed to MIDI note on messages. So for this to work, let's run the transport in live. And we can now see the actual envelope itself has been triggered by the clock at this rate here. So let's come down to a slightly faster subdivision. We can actually choose to run the envelope elements in here in a sync. We've got options for logarithmic or linear or exponential curves. We're changing the contour of the curve here. So there's one mod source gone. Let's go over to a second one. Let's try a function here. We'll switch this on. But again, we're going to run this one in sync to the tempo. So let's move to a slightly slower subdivision here, and we've got a couple of presets to choose from. We can obviously draw our own curves in here as well. But let's make mod source 2 generated from the function, and we're going to map that to the cutoff frequency of the filter. So I've got control over the filter, and let's censor the mod source over. Okay, let's keep trucking. Let's go to number 3. We're going to switch on the second oscillator here. Let's choose another type of wave shape. Let's maybe tune this one up a little bit so we can hear it a bit clearer in the mix. Okay, let's try one of our funky LFOs here. So we're going to send over LFO 1. It's going to be mapped to the wave position of the second oscillator. We can choose the starting point of the modulation with the depth control. Switch on the LFO, send over via the amount control. We can obviously include more strength if we want to have bonkers amounts. The LFOs in the Mod Junction, a bit different from some of the standard stuff. We've got some other interesting curves here. Sample and hold. Pulse width, we can run all of these in sync, but we can actually also pulse width the pulse width. So let's choose LFO 2 to modulate the pulse width of LFO 1. We're using a sine wave here really slow to modulate the pulse width of the first LFO, which has now been routed over. So you get some really interesting sort of modulation sources here. So any parameter that's mappable inside the wavetable in the live object model can be mapped. So let's go to our 4th bank here, 4th mod slot. Let's try adding a little bit of effects in here. So I come back to OS1 and OS2. In fact, let's make it a bit easier to hear what's doing. So some of that would be quite nice. So we're going to map that onto slot 4. And let's choose maybe a crazy mod table. Choose one of our presets. And just send over an amount. And let's maybe give it a bit more. There we go. So let's go to LFO3 and LFO4. Let's activate those and let's make one of these a pulse wave and make it pretty quick. So now if we go to interpolation, we can actually interpolate between two sources. So we're going to use LFO2 and LFO1. And as you can see here now, we've got the slower sine wave interpolated with the faster pulse width. So let's try 3 and 4. We'll make it pretty clear. There we go. So we can use that as a modulation source in here. Let's come over to slot 5, choose interpolation as our source. And we need to map that to something. So let's maybe act on the second filter. So we're going to map that over to the cutoff frequency. Set an initial position for the modulation. Send over the modulation. Let's go to 3 and 4. So you can get some really, really interesting arbitrary modulation sources in the Mod Junction. That's what it's designed for. There's a whole bunch of other crazy stuff you can do, ramps, ADSRs, we've even got noise sources in here using Phelan noise. These are all mostly custom C algorithms written by yours truly, but it provides like a whole bunch of crazy things you can do to some of your favourite Ableton software instruments or audio effects, and obviously also any third-party devices.